I still remember the way her voice carried through the faint hum of the espresso machine. Low, steady, but edged with something I couldn't name. It wasn't what she said that stopped me mid-sentence. It was how she said it, like a warning dressed as a favor. "Don't trust me," she told me, wiping her hands on a folded cloth, eyes still fixed on the coffee cup between us. And for a moment, I couldn't tell if she meant it, or if she just wanted me to. I work part-time at a small bookshop that pretends to sell coffee too, though most people come for the smell of paper, not caffeine. The shop sits between a tailor's and a repair store, the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked while walking past. She came in that afternoon just before closing, when the sky outside was the color of rain-soaked asphalt. She was looking for a book, something quiet but not lifeless, she'd said. The way she phrased things caught me off guard. People usually ask for titles. She asked for moods. I found her one, The History of Rain, and handed it over, trying not to look too interested. But I noticed everything. The faint tremor in her left hand when she reached for the book, the way she kept brushing her hair behind her ear even though it didn't need adjusting. Small, practiced motions that felt like armor. She thanked me without really looking up, but her tone, calm, deliberate, made it sound like a conversation was just waiting to happen. "Do you always work this late?" she asked, eyes flicking toward the darkening window. "Most nights," I said. "People read more when they're sad. Or pretending not to be." She smiled. "Not the kind that reaches the eyes, but the kind that acknowledges understanding." "You think sadness sells books?" "I think it keeps the lights on," I said. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that feels more like a confession than amusement. It slipped between us before the silence came back, heavier this time. The clock ticked past closing time, but neither of us mentioned it. I started stacking books just to look busy. She lingered by the shelf, tracing the spine of a novel with her fingers. When I finally turned to say something, anything, she looked at me with that same stillness people have when they're about to do something against their better judgment. That's when she said it. "Don't trust me." Not like a joke, not even as flirtation. Just a statement. Clean and final. For a second, I thought she was teasing me. But her face didn't move. Her lips stayed slightly parted, her eyes sharp and unblinking, like she was daring me to ignore the words. And I did. "Then let me trust my heart," I said before I could stop myself. It wasn't courage. It was something dumber. Instinct, maybe. The kind that makes you step closer to fire just to see how hot it really is. She didn't answer. Just set the book down, the corners of her mouth softening like she wanted to say something and thought better of it. Then she turned, her reflection briefly catching in the glass door before she disappeared into the gray drizzle outside. After she left, the shop felt too quiet. The light hummed in the corner, the coffee went cold, and for the first time in months, I forgot to lock up right away. I keep thinking about that moment, the weight in her voice, the way the air shifted around her words. It's strange how some warnings sound like invitations when spoken softly enough. It had been a week since she first walked out of the bookshop, and I'd almost convinced myself she wasn't coming back. Then, one late afternoon, I found her sitting cross-legged on the floor near the philosophy shelf, the same section where she'd stood before. No coat this time, just a pale gray sweater, sleeves pushed up to her elbows, a pencil tucked behind her ear like she belonged here. She didn't notice me right away. Her brow furrowed as she skimmed through a worn paperback, her lips moving just slightly as she read. "Found something quiet but not lifeless?" I asked, keeping my tone easy. She looked up, startled, but not unhappy to see me. "Almost," she said, closing the book. "But it's too certain of itself. I can't read authors who sound like they've figured life out." "Then that narrows it down to no one," I said. That earned me a laugh, small, real, and tired around the edges. It landed somewhere deep, the kind of sound you don't realize you've been waiting for. We talked for a bit, nothing important. Weather, coffee, why this city smells like metal after rain. But it wasn't the words, it was how she existed in them. Everything she said felt filtered, like she was weighing the risk of every sentence. When a customer came in asking about a book, she moved aside, giving me space. But her hand brushed mine, barely, accidentally, and she froze. Just long enough for me to see it. That flicker of self-consciousness, the moment her walls slipped. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual composure. "You look tired," I said before I could stop myself. She blinked, a little caught off guard. "You shouldn't say things like that to women." I meant it kindly. "That's worse," she murmured, looking down. Her tone wasn't sharp, it was weary, like she was used to deflecting gentleness. Later, when I was closing up, she lingered by the counter, pretending to read the staff recommendations board. "You organize these by emotion," she said, tracing a note card. I shrugged. "It's easier to find what you need when you know what you're feeling." She smiled faintly. "And what do you file regret under?" Her question hit too close. "Depends. Is it something you want to remember or forget?" That pause again. Her hand tightened slightly around her bag strap, knuckles pale. Then she looked at me, properly looked, for the first time. "Both," she said quietly. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but she was already turning toward the door. Outside, the wind pressed against the glass, making the hanging bell tremble. Before leaving, she hesitated, just a second too long, and said, almost to herself, "You shouldn't trust me, remember?" I could have said something clever. Instead, I just nodded. She stepped into the streetlight glow, the rain just starting again. And I swear, for a heartbeat, I thought she might look back. But she didn't. It started raining harder that evening, the kind of steady, endless rain that makes the city fold in on itself. The shop was empty, the lights dimmer than usual. I was wiping down the counter when I heard the bell chime. Soft, hesitant. It was her again. Mara. I still hadn't said her name out loud, not to anyone. It felt private, like a word that only made sense between the two of us. She stood in the doorway, rain on her hair, holding a paper bag half drenched through. "I brought dinner," she said simply. "You forget to eat." I can tell. I should have laughed, made a joke about her psychic powers. But she looked so sure, so gently commanding, that I just nodded and fetched the old kettle. We ate in silence, two people pretending not to be too aware of each other. The shop smelled like wet pavement and warm food. Outside, the rain blurred everything into one color. She leaned against the counter, sleeves rolled back again, the fine lines near her eyes deepening when she smiled faintly. I caught myself looking too long. "Stop watching me like that," she said, without looking up. "Like what?" "Like I'm about to say something worth listening to." That made me smile, though I try to hide it. "You usually do." A clap of thunder rolled close, and the lights flickered once. She glanced up, startled, then laughed softly, embarrassed at her own reaction. For the first time, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. "I hate storms," she said. "Always have." "Because of the noise?" "No, because they remind me of people I used to wait for." She said it so quietly that I almost pretended not to hear. But she looked up again, waiting to see if I'd ask who. I didn't. I just let the silence stretch between us until it felt safe again. Then her phone buzzed. The name on the screen was turned slightly toward me. "Daniel." I saw her eyes flicker, surprise, then that familiar guardedness returning. She silenced it quickly and set the phone face down. "You should answer," I said. "It's no one." But her voice caught, and she swallowed like she was pushing something down that didn't want to stay. We talked a little after that, lighter things, music, travel, books we'd never finish. But the air had changed. Every glance felt heavier, every word threaded with things neither of us meant to admit. At some point, she reached for the cup between us at the same time I did. Our fingers met, warm, clumsy, too long to be accidental. She didn't pull away. Not right away. Then she did, slow, deliberate, eyes still on me. "You should lock up," she whispered. "I will," I said, though I didn't move. The rain drummed harder, the world outside reduced to sound and shadow. She turned toward the door, hesitated halfway, and for one impossible second, I thought she might stay. Her hand brushed the doorframe. She looked back, lips parted like a secret was caught there, and then she left. The door shut softly, but I could still feel the warmth of her hand where it had met mine. I didn't see her for 3 days. Long enough for the air in the shop to lose its rhythm. Long enough for me to almost believe she was a passing moment. Someone who'd slipped through, left a faint impression, and moved on. Then she came in on a Thursday evening, just before closing again. No umbrella this time. Her hair was still damp from the rain, her eyes sharper than usual, like she'd been arguing with herself before stepping through the door. "You're late," I said softly. "For what?" I didn't have an answer. She walked past me, straight to the back of the shop where the poetry section leaned slightly against the wall. I followed, slowly. She turned toward me. "You keep following me around this place." "What?" The question wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. I wanted to tell her it wasn't on purpose, that I just didn't know what to do when she was near. But she looked at me like she already knew. "Because you don't feel real until you walk in," I said quietly. Her lips parted, not in surprise, but in something closer to fear. She looked down, brushed her fingers along the edge of a book she wasn't reading. "Don't say things like that," she murmured. "You don't mean them." "I do." She let out a small breath. "You're too young to mean them, and I'm too old to hear them." The hum of the old refrigerator in the back filled the pause. The air between us tightened, but neither of us moved closer. "I don't know what we're doing," she said finally. Her voice cracked around the edges, not dramatic, just honest. "You come close, and I forget how to be reasonable. I forget everything I'm supposed to know." Her confession hit harder than if she'd touched me. I tried to laugh, to make it lighter. "Maybe we're just talking." "We're not," she said. "We both know that." Her eyes met mine then, steady, searching, unguarded. It felt like standing at the edge of something deep and knowing the water would be too cold, too real, but stepping forward anyway. "I keep trying to stay away," she whispered. "And every time I do, I find myself walking right back here." "What does that say about me?" "That you're human," I said. She smiled, faint and breaking. "No, it says I don't learn." We stood there, motionless. The clock ticked softly. Somewhere outside, a car passed through a puddle, and the sound stretched out like a sigh. "I can't be what you think I am," she said after a long silence. "You want the parts of me that went quiet a long time ago." "I don't want parts," I said. "I just want." But the words caught, useless halfway through. She stepped closer then, just one step. Close enough that I could see the shimmer of rain still on her jaw, the tremor in her breath. "I wish you hadn't said that," she whispered. "Why?" "Because now I'll keep hearing it every time I try to forget you." The next time she came, it wasn't to browse. She stood just inside the doorway, holding her phone like it weighed too much. Her face was unreadable, calm, but stretched thin. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded, motioning toward the small table near the window. The rain had stopped earlier, but the air still smelled damp, like the world hadn't quite decided if it was done crying. She sat, crossed her arms over her chest, then unfolded them again. Her eyes went to the window, then the floor, then finally to me. "I wasn't planning to tell you this," she said. "But you should know what you keep stepping into." I stayed quiet. She took a breath, the kind that tries to steady itself and fails. 2 years ago, I was with someone. He was younger too. Not by much, but enough for people to notice. We thought it didn't matter. It did. Her fingers twisted the edge of a napkin until it tore. He left when it got complicated. I told myself it was fine, that I'd been foolish, that I deserved it. But then you showed up, same quiet eyes, same way of listening. And I hated it. I hated that you made me remember someone I'd spent a year trying to forget. The words landed soft, but they shook something loose in me, something I didn't even realize I'd been holding. "So that's why you warned me not to trust you," I said. She nodded once. I didn't want to be that woman again. Silence filled the space like water. Outside, the city pulsed in slow motion, headlights bending through wet glass, people walking too quickly, trying not to look up. I wanted to say something comforting, but the words wouldn't come. What came instead was honesty. "I'm not him," I said finally. "I know, but you still see him when you look at me." She hesitated, her jaw tightening. "Sometimes, and then sometimes I don't. That's the problem." Her eyes met mine again, and there it was, that quiet confusion, that ache of recognition and resistance tangled together. I reached for her hand, almost without meaning to. She didn't pull away this time. Her skin was cool from the air outside, her fingers trembling just enough for me to notice. For a moment, it felt like the truth was sitting right there between us, fragile, breathing, dangerous. Then her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. A voicemail. Her expression changed, subtle but sharp, like she'd seen a ghost only she could recognize. She played it without sound, just watching the name light up the screen. Her lips pressed together. Then she locked the phone and set it aside. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. He called today? After almost a year. She looked at me, eyes glassy, tired, full of something too complicated to name. I thought I'd stopped feeling anything, she said. But when I heard his voice, it wasn't anger. It was relief. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't reach for her again. I just sat there, trying to breathe through the weight of it. And when she finally looked up, her voice broke the silence like a confession. I don't know who I'm missing anymore, him, or the person I was when he loved me. She didn't come in for a week after that. Not a message, not a call, just silence, the kind that hums in the corners of a room, that finds its way into the rhythm of your breathing. I kept pretending I wasn't waiting, rearranging shelves that didn't need rearranging, fixing the same crooked sign over the door. But every time the bell chimed, my chest did that thing again, half hope, half warning. And then one evening, there she was. No words this time. She just walked in, closed the door behind her, and stood there, dripping faintly from the mist outside. There was a kind of calm in her face I hadn't seen before. Not peace, exactly, but surrender. "Hi," I said almost too softly. "Hi," she echoed, her voice stripped bare of performance. We didn't talk for a while. She wandered to the back of the shop, her fingers brushing the books like she was saying hello to old friends. I watched from behind the counter until she turned and said, "You're still here." "I work here," I said, smiling. "That's not what I meant." Her words hung there, open, unafraid this time. She came closer, the sound of her steps quiet against the old wooden floor. The air between us thickened with everything we hadn't said. "I listened to that voicemail again," she said, "and I deleted it." I nodded. "Did it help?" "No," she said, "but it stopped me from pretending I still wanted to be someone's memory." She let out a small breath. "You make it harder to disappear." We stood too close then, the kind of closeness that isn't accidental anymore. The faint smell of rain on her hair, the soft creak of the floorboard between us, the pulse I could almost feel even before she moved. She reached for a book on the counter, just to have something to do with her hands. I took it from her gently, set it aside. She didn't look away. "I keep telling myself this isn't a good idea," she said. "It probably isn't," I said. Her mouth curved, tired, resigned. "But I'm so tired of being sensible." The clock ticked once, loud in the stillness. Outside, someone's car splashed through a puddle, the sound fading fast. I don't know who moved first, maybe neither of us did. But somehow, we ended up sitting side by side on the small bench by the window. Not touching, not talking, just breathing in sync. After a long while, she leaned her head against my shoulder. Light, hesitant, but certain enough to make the rest of the world fall quiet. No declarations, no promises, just that, shared warmth, shared stillness. She whispered, barely audible, "Maybe this is what starting over feels like." And I didn't answer, because in that moment, there was nothing left to say. It's been 6 months since that night in the bookshop, the one where neither of us said the word love, but both of us stopped pretending it wasn't there. She still comes by, though not every day. Sometimes we share coffee before opening. Sometimes she reads in the corner and forgets I'm even there. And sometimes, when she's tired or quiet or caught in her own thoughts, she just sits beside me. No explanations, no apologies. That's how I know it's real. It's not made of grand gestures. It's built from pauses, from choosing to stay. I've learned that love isn't about finding someone who makes you feel alive. It's about finding someone you can stand still with, someone who doesn't rush to fill the silence. She once told me, "You made me remember what gentleness feels like." I didn't know what to say then, but now I think I do. Gentleness is what survives after the storm. It's the way she still overthinks before touching my hand, but does it anyway. The way I still hesitate before calling her mine, not because I'm unsure, but because the word feels too small. We've both changed in quiet ways. She laughs more freely now, not often, but when it happens, it doesn't sound borrowed. And me? I've stopped confusing longing with loss. I've stopped trying to fix the way love looks and started learning how it feels. Sometimes people notice the age difference. They ask questions, tilt their heads, wonder out loud. I used to feel the need to explain, to defend it, justify it. But she just smiles now and says, "We met between chapters." That's all it is, really. Two people finding each other in the middle of unfinished stories. I still think about that first thing she ever said to me. "Don't trust me." I understand it now. She wasn't warning me about her. She was warning me about the parts of her that had forgotten how to be trusted. The parts that love had taught to brace for disappointment. And somehow, that made me love her more. Not despite the damage, because of it. Because she stayed anyway. A few nights ago, she asked me, "Do you ever wonder how this ends?" I said, "No. I just wonder how long we can make the quiet last." She smiled, that small, half-sad smile I first noticed months ago, and said, "Maybe that's the right question." And I think it is. Because not every story needs a clean ending. Some just need to be felt, to live in the spaces between trust and fear, between touch and silence. That's where we are now. Somewhere between. Still learning how to hold it without breaking it. If you've made it this far, tell me, have you ever met someone who made you forget what you were trying to protect?